Om Stapakaya ca dharmasya sarvadharmasvarupine Stapakaya ca dharmasya sarvadharmasvarupine Avatara Varishtaya Ramakrishna Te Namaha Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityormamritangamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let us offer our salutations to Sri Ramakrishna, the embodiment of all religions, the Supreme God Incarnate who came to establish religion. Let us pray to Him to lead us from unreal to real, to lead us from darkness of ignorance to the light of knowledge, to lead us from death to immortality. Today's topic: transform secular life into sacred life. Ordinarily, we are all living more or less secular life, meaning we are totally immersed and involved in external activities. We are diverting our whole mind towards external glamour, temptations, pleasures, and all such things. Only to ensure us that they don't give real happiness. Just you may have a glimpse of a kind of happiness, but it will be immediately followed by some kind of displeasure, dissatisfaction, unpleasantness, and all such things. To show that the pleasure you get from the senses through sense objects is temporary and causing pain. So pain and pleasure follow alternately in the ordinary way of our life, exposed to worldly things and worldly involvements. But then life is very golden, which we have got, human life, so precious. It is by the supreme grace of the divine that we have secured this most desirable human life. In human life only we have got all the faculties to rise up from ourselves, from the morbid state to the higher spiritual state. Not in any other life it is possible. Not even a life in heavens. Please note, heavens are specially created just to immerse in pleasures. Hells are created just to undergo suffering and suffering. So, that's how even the life of the ordinary devatas in the heavens would be. Coming to plant life, animal life, Their whole life is based on fear and fear and fear. From the beginning of their birth to the end, they are continuously followed by a sense of fearfulness. So, they don't have thinking capacity, they don't have intellectual faculty, all such deficiencies are there. It's only in human life. It's very special that we have been provided with all the faculties which are required for our upliftment. So, every one of us have to try for one's own upliftment. That's what Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Uddharet Atmanatmanam Atmanam Avsadayet. You have to raise yourself by yourself. That means you have to lift up your mind. So, mind is a gateway either to hell or to liberation. Either to bondage or liberation, mind is a gateway. Turning the mind in one way leads you to bondage. Turning the mind in another way, being wise, leads to liberation. So that points out it is very crucial and very important, very significant that how we manage our mind. Mind management is the highest and most important. If you don't know how to manage your mind, then it's too difficult to think of real happiness, to think of getting over suffering, to think of getting over bondage. So, mind is playing a very important role. We should know it. We need education. We need to know clearly. All this is possible only if you make effort. So the most important factor in transforming your secure life into sacred life is to engage yourself in sincere efforts. First of all, you must realize that going head on towards worldly life is nothing but dangerous. Dangerous in the sense you are more assured about your embodied life, your life in bondage, next also. So, the life in the world is meant to teach us that you should not pursue this worldly life, but pursue the spiritual path. Spiritual path does not mean that you should run away from your hearth and home, get into some solitary place and spend your time in idleness. No. Please note, idleness has no value in spiritual life. In spiritual life, a person must be more active than the person in worldly life. So, mind should be engaged in activity. But what type of activity you are engaged in, that is most important. So, simply saying, I am fool, I am ignorant, I don't know, these things will not help us. I always used to say, ignorance is no excuse. Talking dry philosophy is no excuse. Engage in action, engage in spiritual life, engage in practical way of thinking. Practical way. So, we have to open our eyes. We have to make effort. I don't know. Even that idea of opening our eyes may not come to many people. What? We are opening our eyes all the time. That's not the meaning. Opening your eyes means opening to ways of wisdom. Light the lamp of wisdom. The darkness of ignorance vanishes instantly. The question of ignorance doesn't come there. Once the light is there, darkness is gone. Gone forever. So, Atma Jnana, realization of the own self, the indwelling Paramatman, the Jyoti in every being. The realization of that Jyoti is the final culmination of human life. It is said in our sacred scriptures, only through human life you can achieve liberation. So all this is clearly stated. There is no confusion, there is no room for debate, etc. But in the initial stage, certain type of debate is allowed, but not limitless doubts, limitless debate. Samshayatma vinashyati. If you go on doubting and doubting and doubting, you are ruining yourself. That's not the way. Doubting in a sense to understand is okay. Doubting in the way of argument is absurd and not fruitful. Again you have to apply your intellectual faculty. Our buddhi is most important instrument. We have neglected it. We don't know how to use our intellect at all. But we are masters in using in an opposite way. I should say we are abusing our intellect. How? By indulging intellect in all sorts of temporary things, in worldly things, worldly achievements, accomplishments, all sorts of things. But we are not using this intellectual faculty towards removing the hurdles in our spiritual path and rising to the glory of spiritual life. So, the first lesson to transform our sacred life, to transform our secular life into sacred life, is effort, Purusha Prayatna. Good. But how to get into the idea of making efforts? So, that comes only by inference. By seeing external things, you should be able to grasp. That's the idea. To give an example, fire is there. You know by experience, by seeing others, how the fire burns everything. Whether a sinner or saint, if he puts his finger into fire, it burns. Fire doesn't discriminate, oh, he's a saint, I should not burn. It does its duty. Its duty is to burn. You are, because you are foolish, and you have pushed your finger, you can't say, I don't know, I didn't know it was fire, I put my finger. Do you think the fire will stop? Oh, poor guy, he doesn't know, let me not burn. No. The meaning is, whether you know it or knowingly or unknowingly, if you do wrong action, you have to reap the fruit of it. That's the way it is. It's a cosmic law. See, you must know the whole universe is not simply running in chaos. It has got its own laws, cosmic laws. All the beings in the universe are churned into the law of cause and effect. They are churning. Churning is done to get the best out of it. So, every individual life is nothing but a churning of good and bad. And bad has to be eliminated like excreta, and good has to be taken up. So that's the way it is. So, effort. By doing effort, you will be able to get the grace of God. You may do effort. It doesn't mean that you will get the result immediately. The result is in the hands of God. As I used to say, if you are planning to transform your secular life into sacred life, the first and foremost important thing is you must have the firm belief in the existence of the divine. That's the basic quality. If you don't have that, you are disqualified. You may externally show up in so many ways. That won't help. So the initial stage is you must get into the habit of cultivating Shraddha, firm faith, unshakable faith in the cosmic divine, Paramatman, who is overseeing all our activities. You may say, nobody is there, I can do this thing. No, God is always there. Every bit of it, even you may not know. Even your mind may not perceive, but God perceives it. So God can go deep into any level of consciousness. So, do it properly, make effort properly, be sincere about it. Then pray for God. Oh God, please help me, guide me in spiritual path. So, with the intense yearning of heart, one should pray. The mother feels compassion for her child when she feels him running about breathlessly. She had been hiding herself. Now she appears before the child. So when the child is engaged in game, mother keeps aloof. Let the child enjoy a little more the game. When it is done with game, then I shall take up. And how to know that game is ending? The child begins to cry. Ma, 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 ma. So the play, he was playing all through some toys. Even if you throw some fresh toys, most beautiful looking toys, the child is not satisfied, simply tosses out and cries. It cries more bitterly. If you give more temptation, it cries more bitterly. I want mother, mother. A whole being is wholly concentrated on the mother. The mother has to run. So it is like that. When you are wholeheartedly crying for God, that's the meaning of yearning. God feels tremendously compassionate and comes towards you to show His grace. So, that's the idea. But a question may be asked, why should God make us run about? Why all these things? Sri Ramakrishna anticipates this question and answers in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, which contains most beautiful spiritual ideas, instructions for all of us to practice. He says, it is God's will that we should run about a little then it's great fun. God has created the world in play, as it were. So the whole game, the whole universe is called Mahamaya, the great illusion. Therefore, one must take refuge in the Divine Mother, the cosmic power itself. It is she who has bound us with the shackles of illusion. The realization of God is possible only when those shackles are severed. One must propitiate the Divine Mother. The primal energy in order to obtain God's grace. In a way, God Himself is Mahamaya, who deludes the world with her illusion and conjures up the magic of creation, preservation and destruction. Sri Ramakrishna tells in another place, Brahman and Shakti are inseparable. Upwards and reverse of the same coin. God and His power. In fact, referring to Sri Sharda Devi, Sri Ramakrishna tells, look, Sharda Devi is a divine power, compassionate mother. She is my power. And he compares it just like Agni and its power to burn. They are inseparable. So, it is Mahamaya who deludes us. She has spread us the veil of ignorance before our eyes. We can go into the inner chamber only when she lets us pass through the door. Living outside, we see only outer objects, but not that eternal being, existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute. Therefore, it is stated in our scriptures that deities like Brahma praised Mahashakti, the divine power, cosmic power, Adishakti, Parashakti, for the destruction of the demons Madhu and Kaitaba. Shakti alone is the root of the universe. That primal energy has two aspects, Vidya and Avidya. Avidya deludes, Avidya conjures up lust and gold, which cast a spell. We are always under the spell of this lust and gold, lust and greed. Vidyasagar begets devotion, kindness, wisdom and love, which lead one to God. This avidya must be propitiated, and that is the purpose of the rites of Shakti worship. The devotee assumes various attitudes towards Shakti in order to propitiate her, the attitude of a handmaid, a child, and so on. So, first point is to exert ourselves towards the higher way of life. Secondly, praying to God earnestly. And Sri Ramakrishna says about the importance of prayer. One must pray to God incessantly. Incessantly. That means you must be conscious of what you are doing. Conscious. Do it consciously, it has got tremendous effect on the mind. Not doing in a careless way, haphazard way. No. Do it consciously, with all zealousness, with all devotion, with full attention, full focus. Pray. Pray to God. At dusk, put aside all duties and pray to God. One attains God through japa, by repeating the name of the Divine God. Secretly and in solitude, one receives divine grace. Then comes vision. Suppose there is a big piece of timber lying under water and fastened to the land with a chain. By proceeding along the chain, link by link, will at last touch the timber. Unless a man is guileless, he does not receive the grace of God. That means you must be free from hypocrisy. Hypocrisy. When you believe a certain spiritual idea, you must believe it 100%. If there is any shaking or wavering, that means your mind is not quite guileless. Such things happen because of the impurities of the mind. What are the impurities? Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. 6 impurities. They are even compared as 6 alligators. 1 alligator is enough to kill a man. 6 alligators. Where are they? They are not outside. Not in Florida. In our own mind. All the 6 alligators are watching the soul in 6 directions. Each one is ready to pounce. Passion, anger, greed, delusion, jealousy, hatred, egoism, all these things are the most stumbling block. And the worst of them all is egoism, ahankar. Ahankar. So you have to cross all through them. You have to cross over them. You have to cross over them. Then only the spiritual gate is opened. To cross over this, you have to pray earnestly and practice spiritual ideas in a humble way. Spiritual practice is not for show. Not that you should sit before hundreds of people and show up yourself as an excellent meditator like that. That is not the way. To show the people how to meditate, you can sit and behave. But God accepts how you are meditating, how much sincere you are, like that. Sri Ramakrishna says further, he who seeks God with a longing heart can see Him, can talk to Him as I am talking to you. Believe my words. This is Sri Ramakrishna telling. When I say that God can be seen, and you can see in Sri Ramakrishna's life itself, how through the worship of the Divine Mother in the image, he could realize and he would see every day the Divine Mother, every day. Sri Ramakrishna would say, our Divine Mother is dressing her hair, standing on the terrace of the temple. Probably you have not seen the Dakshineshwar Kali temple, it's the most fantastic temple. You must go and see. Sri Ramakrishna literally would see Divine Mother there. And he would go and, for every now and then he would go and talk to her, like we talk to each other. And God can be seen. And it is proved in the life of all spiritual aspirants. So, can one find God in the sacred books? By reading the scriptures, one may feel, at the most, that God exists. But God does not reveal himself to a person unless the person himself dives deep. Only after such a plunge, after the revelation of God through his grace, is one's doubts destroyed. You may read scriptures by thousands and recite thousands of texts, but unless you plunge into God with yearning of heart, you will not comprehend him. By mere scholarship you may fool man, but not God. Scriptures and books, what can one achieve with these alone? Nothing can be realized without his grace. Strive with a longing heart for his grace. Through his grace you will see him and he will talk to you. A sub-judge was sitting by the side of Sri Ramakrishna, asked, "Sir, does God show more grace to one than to another? If so, he can be accused of the fault of partiality." Sri Ramakrishna replied, "What are you saying? Do you mean to say that the moon and glowworm are the same, though both give light?" Ishwar Vidyasagar asks me the same question. He said, "Is it a fact that God gives more power to one and less to another?" God, I said, exists in every being as a all-pervading spirit. He is in the ant as well as in me, but there are different manifestations of his power in different beings. If all are the same, then why have we come here to see you? Attracted by your renown? Have you grown a pair of horns? Oh no, it is not that. You have compassion, you have scholarship. There is a greater degree of these virtues in you than in others. That is the reason you are so well known. Don't you see that there are men who single-handed can defeat 100 persons? Again, a man takes to his heels in fear of another. Is he such a person too? If there are not different manifestations of power in different beings, then why did people respect Keshu Chandra Sen and so much? One day a disciple said to the Holy Mother in a mood of great dejection, "O Mother, I have practiced so much austerity and japa, repeating God's name, but I have not achieved anything." In reply to this, rather curtly, Holy Mother said, "God is not fish or vegetable that you can buy him for a price." This is very important to remember, that a person who has really spiritually progressed never thinks he has done enough to deserve God's vision. So, he keeps on practicing continuously. The most stumbling block, as I said earlier, is egoism. One has to get rid of it. One has to. Without crushing ego, you will never be able to realize the truth. Sri Ramakrishna was talking to Captain and the devotees when Jayagopal Sen and Trailokya of the Brahma Samaj arrived. They saluted the master and sat down. Sri Ramakrishna looked at Trailokya with a smile and continued the conversation. Sri Ramakrishna said, "It is an account of the ego that one is not able to see God. In front of the door of God's mansion lies the stump of ego. One cannot enter the mansion without jumping over the stump." There was once a person who had acquired the power of taming the ghosts. One day, at his summons, the ghost appeared. The ghost said, "Look, now tell me what you want me to do. You have summoned me." The moment you cannot give me any work, I should break your neck. The man had, of course, many things to accomplish. So he had the ghost to do them all, one by one. At last he could find nothing more for the ghost to do, because ghost was capable of doing things very quickly. The moment he said, the next moment it is done. Now, said the ghost, I am going to break your neck, because you are not giving me any more work. Wait a minute, said the man. I shall return presently. So he ran to his teacher and said, Revered sir, I am in great danger. That's my trouble. This is my trouble. And he told the teacher his trouble and asked, what shall I do now? The ghost is threatening me to break my neck. The teacher said, don't worry, I will give you a solution. Do this. As I said, tell the ghost to straighten the kinky hair, this curly hair. The ghost devoted itself day and night to straightening the hair. But how could it make a kinky hair straight? The hair remains kinky. Likewise, the ego seems to vanish this moment, but it reappears the next. Unless one renounces the ego or ahankar, one does not receive the grace of God. Suppose there is a feast in a house, and the master of the house puts a man in charge of the stores. As long as the man remains in the storeroom, the master doesn't go there, but when of his own will the man renounces the storeroom and goes away, then the master locks it and takes charge of it himself. A guardian is appointed only for a minor. A boy cannot safeguard his property. Otherwise, therefore, the king assumes responsibility for him. God does not take over our responsibilities unless we renounce our ego. Sri Ramakrishna says in the Gospel, once Lakshmi and Narayan, they were seated in Vaikunta in their abode. When suddenly Narayana stood up, Goddess Lakshmi had been stroking his feet. She said, O Lord, where are you going? Narayana answered, one of my devotees is in great danger. I must save him. With these words he went out. But he came back immediately. Lakshmi was greatly puzzled. She said, O Lord, why have you returned so quickly? Narayan smiled and said, Oh, the devotee was going along the road, overwhelmed with love for me. Some washermen were drying clothes on the grass, and the devotee walked over the clothes. At this, the washermen chased him and were going to beat him with their sticks. So I ran out to protect him. But, why have you come back? Asked Lakshmi. Narayan laughed and said, Look, I saw the devotee himself picking up a brick to throw at them. So I came back. All laugh. Sri Ramakrishna said, I said to Keshav, you must renounce your ego. Keshav Chandra said, if I do, how can I keep my organization together? Sri Ramakrishna said, how slow you are to understand. I am not asking you to renounce the ripe ego, the ego that makes a man feel that he is a servant of God or his devotees. Give up the unripe ego, the ego that creates attachment to lust and greed. The ego that makes a person feel he is God's servant, his child, is the ripe ego. It doesn't harm one. So, like that you must tame your ego. But that's very important. Without controlling your ego, you can't transform your life into sacred life. As I said earlier, effort is essential, very essential. The wind of God's grace is incessantly flowing. Lazy sailors on the sea of life do not take advantage of it, but the active and the strong always keep the sails of their minds unfurled to catch the favorable mind. They keep always the sails of their minds unfurled to catch the favorable wind and thus reach their destination very quickly. As a general rule, one must go through a long preparation before one can attain perfection. Baba Dwarkanath Mittal was not made a judge of the High Court in one day. He had to work hard and spend years of arduous toil and study before he was raised to the bench of the High Court. Those who are not willing to undergo the trouble and labor must. Those who are not willing to undergo the trouble and the labor, they must be prepared to remain mere briefless breeders. Another important factor in transforming our secular life into sacred life is perseverance. Perseverance. The Master said to the devotees, everything depends upon the will of the Lord. Perseverance is necessary for God vision. If you merely sit on the shore of a lake and say, there are fish in this lake, will you get any fish? Go and get the things necessary for fishing. Get a rod and line and bait and throw some food into the water to entice them. Then, from the deep water, the fish will rise and come near when you can see and hook them. You wish me to show you God while you sit quietly by without making the least effort. You want me to set the curd, to churn the butter and hold it to your mouth. You ask me to catch the fish and put it in your hands. How unreasonable is your demand? So, perseverance is very important in your spiritual practice. Then, practice japa and meditation. At Jairambati, a disciple asked Holy Mother, how does one get the vision of God? Mother also said, it is only through the grace. But one must practice meditation and japa, that is repeating God's name. That removes the impurities of mind. One must practice spiritual disciplines such as worship and so forth. As one gets the fragrance of a flower by handling it, or as one gets the smell of sandalwood by rubbing it against a stone. In the same way, one gets spiritual awakening by constantly thinking of God. But you can realize Him right now if you become desireless. The desire, that is the root cause of all our sufferings. Desire is the root cause of our bondage. The desire compels you to act in a way to achieve the desire. If you are not able to accomplish your desire, you become angry and you commit all sorts of crimes. So, you must unnecessarily, must not allow your mind to harbor on desires. So cut down your desires. First you have to replace the bad desires with good desires, and finally you have to reject good desires also. Both good and bad, reject them both. Only aspire for God. Aspiration for the realization of the divine, that should be always focused upon. Holy Mother Sharda Devi taught certain ways of getting divine grace of the Lord. She says, God is one's very own. It is the eternal relationship. He is everyone's own. One realizes Him in proportion to the intensity of one's feeling for Him. Again, as she laid the greatest stress on the repetition of the Lord's name, she emphasized that repeating the name of God once, when the mind is controlled, is equivalent to 1,000,000 repetitions when the mind is away from God. So, the repetition of God's name must be accompanied by concentration. You must be fully focusing upon the divine when you utter His name. Then alone one gets the grace of God. So grace of God shows up in different ways. The moment you engage yourself in sincere repetition of God's name, you feel a tremendous peace in the heart, tranquility in the mind. You feel a kind of inexpressible joy. They are the signs of grace. So you feel like doing more and more. You feel like absorbing yourself in that divine environment. That's why people say, please go constantly to solitude. That is a place where it is enriched with spiritual atmosphere, where the surroundings are serene, sacred. The moment you enter into that surrounding, you feel a kind of upliftment. You feel a kind of joy. But you must go with aspiration. That's very important. Many of the people have heard, having come to Sri Ramakrishna Universal Temple in Chicago, Homer Glen. When they come out, they say, "Oh Swamiji, the temple is excellent, and we feel a kind of peace in our mind. The surroundings, the wooded areas, all this enrich the spiritualness of the place." And it's a fact. The grace of God is very important, and the grace of the mind also is important for spiritual progress. And there is one sure sign of received grace. It manifests itself in the aspirant's life as a spirit of renunciation. All progress in spiritual life has to pass through the portal of renunciation. There is no way of bypassing that portal by any kind of trick or gimmick. Attachments to the things of the world and slavery to the senses in a gross or subtle way are obstacles in the way of spiritual progress. We are not to renounce anything if we do not want to. We are free to possess and enjoy whatever we can get at our acquire, whatever we can get or acquire, and take what goes along with that. That is, santushto yena kenachit. Be satisfied with whatever you have. So, one has to practice dispassion towards the things of the world. Attachment plays a trick. It binds you without your knowledge because of the attachment. But if you are not attached, then you will be able to use all your energy for the upliftment of the mind. So, in order to improve spiritually, one has to develop spiritual qualities such as zeal for realizing the truth and practicing truthfulness and always trying to be compassionate and engaging oneself in selfless activity. We all do activities in one way or other, but doing activities for one's own self, for one's own benefit, that's not the thing to expand your life. In addition to what you are doing for yourself, you must try to serve others, neighbors. You must serve the needy people. That becomes act of selflessness. You are acting out of your love of the divine. So selfless activities come in different ways. Recently, I saw a newsletter where it is mentioned that a lady who passed away while touring in India, but she had left a wish that I wish if I die, my ashes should be immersed in the Ganges. But she had come from different part of the country. That is, she was living in foreign country, but she had come on a tour. But seeing that wish expressed, one person who was not related to her at all, somehow he became very compassionate. He took the ashes, he travelled all through to the Ganges in Benares and put that ash into the holy water. That came in the newsletter. That is the act of selflessness. To help the departed soul to attain peace. Like that, there is suffering, so much of suffering in the world. What little we can do to lessen the suffering of the people. To whatever best you can do, that is considered as nishkam karma. So whenever you do a selfless activity, it becomes karma yoga. When you are engaging in karma yoga, it purifies your mind. It purifies your mind. So purification of the mind is most essential. And it is possible. So we have to engage all our faculties and system in such a way that we are progressing upward rather than going downward. If we are using all our mental faculties in a proper way, we are sure to reach the goal. And there is no doubt about it. All the spiritual masters have declared that it is possible to raise oneself. And spiritual teachers come to help us, to guide us. But you have to proceed. They will tell you to come this way, but you have to go. So going is in your hands. You may take the teaching, but if you don't practice it, then who is to blame? So each one is responsible for one's own upliftment. Bearing that idea, you must focus on your spiritual practices diligently. Then you will be able to move forward and able to accomplish the result. And result is followed only when all the impurities of the mind are washed away. How much impurity each one has, we can't say. Each person has got different proportions of impurities. But those impurities must be cleared off, and spiritual practice is a way to clear off all the impurities of the mind. So one way is constantly thinking of God and doing your activities in a selfless way, always thinking about the welfare of the people and the humanity, and think God is doing everything. That way you become free from ego. These are the sure ways of getting God's grace, and through God's grace you will be able to have eternal peace and bliss. With these words I conclude my talk. Thank you very much. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. May the Divine Spirit protect us, guide us, give us strength and right understanding. May we not hate one another. May love and harmony be with us all. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. May the Divine Lord protect us. May He nourish us. May we work in harmony with great vigor. May our study be illuminating and fruitful. May we not hate each other. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.